All right, Steve, you could take it away again.
I am calling this Bay Village Historic District Commission public hearing to order at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, January 13, 2026. Commissioners present are Steve Dunwell, Laura Shea, Craig Douglas, and Catherine Nelson. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, including the March 29, 2023 legislation extending the suspension of these provisions until June 30, 2027, we are conducting this meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Bay Village Historic District Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform or email staff at bayvillageac@boston.gov. We will repeat these instructions throughout the hearing.
Thank you. And up next is the ratification of the November 12th, 2025 meeting minutes. I sent that to everyone. If you had the chance to read through it, I really appreciate it. But if anyone would like to set a motion, please do so.
I've read the meeting minutes from, was it November 12th or was it the December meeting?
No, November 12th, December was canceled.
Oh, canceled. Yep. Okay. I read the meeting minutes from November 12th, and I make a motion that we ratify them.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Put your hand. Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. That would be unanimous. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then up next is going to be administrative review. So very comparatively short and small agenda than we've had in the past. It's going to be two simple admin items. The first one was approved or given an emergency repair placard because at the rear, the fire escape system and side balconies were deteriorated. So the scope of work was to replace all square bolts securing all the wall connections. So as you could see, on the bottom left-hand side, these are some of the images that the applicant shared with us. And so this is at the rear, so Dingley Place, if I'm correct. And yeah, this is part of the application. Everything was compliant with the regulatory standards. And if anyone has any questions about that, or we can proceed. Great. And then the second one is 33 Fayette Street. So at the front facade, was to replace all the windows with 6/6 black aluminum clad windows, which again is a provable material, and also it matches the existing color of those windows. And as you can see, the applicant shared this very helpful image of showing the proposed window replacement.
Jackie, can we assume that the shutters will remain as they are?
Yeah, so the applicant did not mention within their project scope of work that the shutters are to be replaced. And if the applicant wants to do any other work, they would have to reapply with a different scope of work.
Would it be a case then, to Steve's point, would it be a case where we could take a vote on this with the proviso that the shutters stay in place, or do we not mention that because it wasn't part of their application?
Yeah, it wasn't placed in their application, so we can't really make that suggestion. But again, if they come with us with a different scope of work, including the shutters, and that's something that the commission can look at beforehand and let the preservation planner know that that is a suggestion they would like to make.
Right. Now, just to clarify that process, Laura, I think you've already seen this before, that if something is not mentioned, it is essentially not within our view, so to speak. Even my asking about the shutters is kind of like almost inappropriate, because the shutters would have to stay unless that someone said they were going to change them.
I see.
So I look at the picture and I said, yeah, I sure hope those shutters stay on there because they look great, you know?
And then seeing that if we have no other questions, one of the commissioners, if you can please make a motion.
I make a motion that we approve these two administrative items, both on Fayette Street as presented.
And I second that.
All in favor? I'm in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Greg?
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
aye.
Greg's in favor, so it's unanimous. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. Moving forward, staff updates. So actually, we just wanted to share with you the Boston Landmarks Commission recently moved offices in December. So our original address was 20 City Hall Avenue. Now we are in the brand new renovated 26 Court Street, which is very nice and very exciting. So if the commissioners have any correspondence coming to or from, just know that our address has changed. So I would be happy to follow up with you guys to give you our full address. And then that all those address changes should have been made within things like our meeting minutes, our agendas. So we're still in the process of doing that.
Jackie, which building is 26 Court? Is that the old school department building with the columns?
So that's, if I'm understanding correctly what you're saying. So that is like, yes, it was the site of like the old prison. So it's right across the steaming kettle on Court Street.
Prison, I thought it was the school department.
The school was actually the old city hall, like the site of it.
No, the school department
Oh, okay. Then it must have been.
with the columns. I think you're
Yes,
right,
yes. Okay,
Steve. Yep.
yes.
Yeah.
There are
and that-
two buildings with columns in my mind.
yeah,
But yes, that is the old building.
right. That building has been under repair, restoration for a couple of years.
Yeah, it has.
And
And
they just pulled almost everything away. It looks beautiful now. It's clean, it's wonderful. And once upon a time, the school department was in there.
okay. Yeah, no, it's a real privilege to work in there. They did a great job. Some of the components of it are still under construction. They're still doing some work, but it's been a real joy and treat to move to a wonderful office. So yeah, it's been great. And then moving on to our second staff update is that Commissioner Ann Kilgus recently notified our office that she is intending to resign from the Bay Village Historic District Commission. So we just wanted to share that with all the commissioners. And then also coming from the BLC, we wanted to thank Anne, despite her not being here, of all of her efforts and all of the time that she's spent with the commission. So thank you so much, Anne Kilgus. And I know she worked alongside many of you and was not only that, a commissioner, but a resident to Bay Village. So
Following up on that, Jackie, can we write a letter on your letterhead to Anne, thanking her in addition to just saying that in this particular
yeah,
form?
I can certainly like find a way to coordinate that. Tomorrow
I think it would be much appreciated by Anne.
Yeah, of course. I 100% agree. Obviously Anne has been on the commission for a very long time, so certainly I think it would be a great idea to send her something for her all her time and an appreciation. So let me follow up with the rest of you guys on that. If that's something you guys are interested in, I'd certainly be happy to look into it, and I think it's a great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. And,
Okay.
letterhead, maybe there's an official seal of some kind, a stamp, a ribbon or something,
Let
Other
me
than that,
look into
maybe
that. Yeah.
we could, in an informal way, be sure to extend our thanks to her because she's been a member of this group for quite a long time. She was here before I was, and it's a lot of years, so she should be thanked.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice idea. I think that's a good idea, Steve.
Okay, well, we'll find a way. Jackie, maybe you'll coordinate on that. Something like that.
I will certainly write that
That
down.
brings up another question, though, Jackie.
Yes.
How exactly will we replace Anne?
So that's something I'm gonna have to get in touch with Joe with about the next sort of steps with that, finding someone a replacement for the commission. But when that happens and when that process starts, I'll be sure to loop in the rest of the commissioners on that.
I believe Anne fulfilled the Historic New England seat on the commission.
Just writing that
Yeah, I
down.
think you're right about that.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure, does that mean that the replacement will also come from Historic New England?
That's something I have to follow up with Joe and the rest of leadership on that process.
Yeah, I think they get a chance to nominate someone, I believe, but Joe would know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll certainly follow up with him. And once we get more information on that process, I'll be sure to loop everyone in. So two things I'll do, loop in with, Ann Kelgis's thank you, and then also just the process of appointing someone.
Yeah, I'm still a little bit puzzled on how this works. So Historic New England gets to recommend someone. Is it like their seat? Is that the idea?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then so they would recommend, but does that person need to be a Bay Village resident, as Anne was, or is it that requirement is not, they don't overlap? So it could be some other historic person. How's that work?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check in with Joe because usually like the appointments I've dealt with have been with neighborhood associations or someone who's a resident of the district. So this is the first time I'm dealing with a commissioner or the possible idea of appointing someone from a seat that isn't involved directly within the neighborhood. So that's something I'll certainly follow up with.
Okay.
Any other questions before we go to the adjournment of the hearing? Oh, okay.
So Jackie, let me just double check. Are there any other comments or subjects that the commissioners want to bring up?
No.
Not from me.
Okay, hearing none.
Not on my end.
Okay, then hearing no further items, may I ask for a motion to adjourn?
I make a
I'll make
motion
that
that we
motion.
adjourn.
Perfect.
Second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, seconded by Craig. All in favor? Raise your hand or say
Aye.
aye, something.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Craig, Catherine?
Yeah, aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous, and thank you very much.
All right.
All right,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.